Hello, I'm Lisa Bien, and welcome to Bouncing Back. Parenthood is one of the great joys in my life. All of my close friends have heard stories about my boys and how proud I am to be their mother. But contrary to what we read in women's magazines, there is no way to create perfect circumstances for parenting. That's especially true for teen mothers, teenagers dealing with pregnancy and motherhood, who will be facing those challenges earlier than most. But that doesn't mean that those challenges are insurmountable, and it certainly doesn't mean that they still can't bounce back into the lives they've always wanted. Today we're going to discuss teen pregnancy, motherhood, and how to face those challenges through the teen years, early adulthood, and beyond. Let's get started. Syreeta Martin was a teen mother. She graduated from Temple University with a BA in journalism and founded SincerelySyreeta.com, a lifestyle blog that seeks to inspire, empower, and motivate others. Syreeta not only completed her education, she thrived, building a successful company, Sincerely Syreeta & Co. In 2013, after a successful crowdfunding campaign, Syreeta now runs a media and production, business, and lifestyle blog and hosts a monthly talk show, Sincerely Chosen. Thank you for joining us, Syreeta. Shileste Overton Morris is the Senior Program Development and Organizational Manager at the Center for Schools and Communities and has worked on numerous projects to help support pregnant and parenting teens. A Temple graduate, Shileste went on to earn a master's in public administration from Penn State. Shileste has over 15 years of experience in helping build capacity in organizations that serve children, youth, and families, especially those who are vulnerable at risk. Shileste has served as the former chair of the Pennsylvania Coalition to Prevent Teen Pregnancy and is currently a member of the Pennsylvania for Healthy Youth, PPHY, a collaborative for adolescents' sexual health. Thank you for joining us today. Well, thank you for both being here. It's a very exciting topic that we're covering today. So,
thank you for having us.
Well, I've been hearing about you forever, so I feel honored and blessed to have you here. So, why don't you start out by sharing your story with us?
I guess it starts when I was 16 years old. I had actually moved from Pittsburgh to Delaware when I was 12 years old. And while I was in Delaware, I was very much into school, always on top of my grades. Very much into extracurricular activities and church and, just very active in my community. But of course, I met a boy and I fell in love and I just thought he was the best thing that ever happened. And we went on to be together for 5 years. But when I was 16, I became pregnant with our daughter. And I never forget that day because up until that point, my family had really had what I call a generational curse of women that got pregnant young. And so growing up, seeing this around me, I always wanted to make sure that, I'm not going to become that and this is going to be my life and it's going to look like this and I'm going to do this and all of these things.
So you had it all figured out.
In my head, I thought I did.
Isn't that great when we plan our life out?
When you think you do? Yep. Yeah, no, it was the furthest thing from it. So when I found out that I had become pregnant, I was definitely very much disappointed in myself because it wasn't what I had initially wanted for my life. But I was blessed to have a really strong support system. I was terrified to tell my mother because my sister had gotten pregnant when she was 17. And, I had dreams of going to college and, I had envisioned myself being this big CEO and, head editor of a major magazine.
And you're almost there, right?
And
you are a big CEO now.
Everything was, kind of in jeopardy at that point. And so I actually called my sister, who at that point was married and her husband was in the Navy. She's living in another state. And I asked her if she would tell my mom. I'm like, Brandon, I need you to tell mom. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. And so she gave me specific instructions. She told me that, as soon as I got home to go to my room, to close my door, lock it, put a chair up against the doorknob, turn out the lights, and go to the other side of the room in the corner. And I did that. That's exactly what I did. I followed it step by step. And I remember sitting in that corner in the dark, and I heard my mom come in, and she came upstairs. She got to the top of the steps, and I could tell she was on the phone with my sister. And she just was like, what? And there was just the biggest deep sigh I think I've ever heard her give. And she just, and it was quiet for a minute. And then the next thing I knew, she went in her room and she closed the door. And so I stayed in that corner for a few hours, and she never came in. And so I still at school the next day. So I said, all right, if she kills me in my sleep, all my problems are done anyway. So I removed the chair and unlocked the door and everything, and I fell asleep. And about 1:30 in the morning, I just remember feeling like someone bear hugged me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. She's going to kill me. It's over. And the first question she asked me, she just said, do you have a plan? And I said, yes. And I wasn't completely sure, but I felt like I had made up my mind at that point what I was going to do. And she had told me, you have to go to school, Syreeta. No matter what you do, you have to go to school. Your education is going to become the most important thing in your life at this point. And I was like, Mom, I'm going to school. I'm telling you, I'm going to school. So I went on to graduate from high school a year early. I took a year off, worked 3 jobs, was able to save up a little money. And during that time, I had found out at Temple, if you have a child, that they will let you have an apartment on campus. And so for me, that was the little glimmer of hope that I needed. I had always wanted to come to Temple. I wanted to major in journalism. So I applied, I got in. I applied for housing, I got the housing. And in 2006, myself and my 18-month-old daughter came and we moved to campus, and that kind of started my journey.
Wow. I'm like, where did she come from? That's incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really incredible. You just shared so many different things. I have so many questions. I guess. Okay.
Sorry.
No. Like, it's great you're here at Temple. Well, first of all, you're brilliant because everybody should come to Temple. But
like the 3 of us.
like the three of us, right? But you took us back to the day briefly. You talked about like the day that you found out you were pregnant. Can you just tell us what it felt like, other than you're scared to tell your mom? I'm sure there was a lot of other emotions that were going through.
Yeah, because I didn't tell her until the night that I found out. I had actually found out after I came home from school. I think like any teen or young woman, I had kind of had this sense that something just wasn't quite right. And so I went and got a clear blue test. And for those who don't know, the clear blue test is a digital test that says pregnant or not pregnant. It's not the lines, it's the words. And so my best friend had come over, and I went in and took the test. And I remember I had put it on a paper towel on my mom's island in our kitchen. And I had happened to be walking past. It had only been less than a minute. And as I was walking past, I had caught a glimpse of the pregnant sign that came up. And I just started screaming. I'm like, oh my God. And so I just tried to run out the house. I ran for the front door. I don't know why. I think I just wanted to get away from the reality. But once I got to the door, I broke down crying, and my best friend came over and she held me, and she just told me it was going to be okay. And in that moment, I was terrified. I mean, I was petrified. I knew that my life had just changed. I knew it wasn't over, though, because I had seen women, be in this kind of circumstance.
You just said the magic words that you knew it wasn't over. And clearly we know that it's not over, because look at you.
Yeah,
you're amazing, right? So you're crying, and you said something that was really key too, is that your mom was really supportive, your best friend was really supportive. Was there any surprises that, looking back now, you think, wow, I thought that person would have been there for me? Or is that just a journey that we go through and
I mean, there were definitely a lot of hurtful moments along the way. As I mentioned, I had really been into church at that time. So I was in choir and dance and hip hop, and I was involved in everything. And the minute they found out I couldn't participate in anything anymore, they said that, we can't support that. We can't have you on stage and, promote that kind of lifestyle, which, according to the religious beliefs, I understood.
Right.
But even within that, a lot of my friends from church and even at high school, their parents, pretty much told them they couldn't hang around me anymore. And
what did that feel like?
It hurt. Even at that point in time, I could understand the parents' reasoning. But I had always been a relatively good kid. It wasn't like I ever influenced my friends to harm themselves or do negative things. Coincidentally, I had always, among my group of friends, really been looked at as the mom type. Syreeta was the one that you went to if you had a problem, or if you needed advice, or, if you needed a pick-me-up or encouragement. So to know that, to know the role that I played within our friendship circle, and to see that slowly start to fall apart, it definitely hurt. And it did put a strain on my spiritual relationship with God. But I definitely understood the repercussions of my actions. And I also, at the same time, didn't want to be what everybody thought I was going to be from that moment on. My biggest thing was not to become a statistic.
And you wanted that education.
Yeah.
And so now we're at Temple and you're on campus. And what was it like being a mom on campus?
This is the most challenging thing. Although I was the same age as the typical college student, I was not living the same life. You know, while they were getting up whatever time they may feel like getting up, going to class whenever they may feel like doing that, partying, you know, just living their lives. I had, you know, school full time. I was working multiple part-time jobs, raising my daughter on my own, living in a city with no family. So the support system was definitely limited. I was very blessed in that my daughter's father was supportive and really wanted to see me excel, and his family was supportive of us, so that helped. But it felt like I was isolated, you know, and looking back at that time, I actually say there were a lot of times where I felt like I was in solitary confinement.
We're going to wrap it up on that note for a second. We're going to take a little short break and we'll be right back, and then we can talk about how you don't feel isolated, all the resources that are available to everybody here, not just on campus, but to teens themselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. We're talking about teen pregnancy and overcoming the challenges of teen pregnancy with Syreeta, Martin, and Shileste. So we were talking about feeling isolated while you were here on campus. There's tons of resources out there. You heard her story. What number one, why do you think this is such a prevalent problem on society today? And then what are the major resources that we can speak to?
Well, first, let me say to Syreeta, I am so awesomely proud of you. You've definitely done an outstanding job and pushed forward and persevered through the challenges that you faced. And I just want to say congratulations to you.
I know, you're like,
God makes a way.
And that I look forward to your future successes. And thank you, Lisa, for allowing me to be a guest on your program today. So to answer your question, I think society sends many mixed messages to our young people, especially our young women. We talk about sex selling, we look at products on television commercials and see all kinds of ads and products that are pushed by sex. And yet we tell young people too that sex is dirty, or that they shouldn't be engaged in it. And so, young people have a very difficult time navigating what to think about sex. And so as a result, they depend on those messages to really help them figure out what it is that they should be doing. And depending on what the norms are in their community or in their families or around their friends, that can have a great impact on what their choices are.
Syreeta was lucky, but she was blessed with a great support system and a mom, right, who really said to you, get your education. And one of the things, the reason we really want to talk today and do the show is because we really want people to believe that, like you said, getting pregnant as a young adult or a teenager is not the end of the world. There is life. Where would you say, you heard her story and she was like, all right, I went and I took the test and I ran out the door. What advice would you give to somebody who is who finds out they're pregnant, whether here on campus or a teen? What piece of advice would you have? What agencies would you say are the best to go to?
Okay. Well, Syreeta's path is not unlike many young people who find themselves in a situation where they're either facing pregnancy or going to be a partner to someone who is pregnant. And so that fear and shock that she experienced is very common among young people. I think her story about the support that she received from her family is critical. One of the things that we tell a teen facing pregnancy is to ask for help. That is the most important thing that you can do. Sometimes that help comes from your parents. Sometimes it comes from another trusted adult. Even sometimes comes from a faith-based agency, which unfortunately you weren't able to access that. But there are other resources in our community, such as the county health departments, there are WIC offices, Head Starts, and if you're a college student trying to find out where on campus those kind of resources around childcare, as Syreeta did, finding out what campuses provide support services to young parents is really important.
So before we went on today, actually, Shileste shared with me that she too found out that she was pregnant while here on campus.
Right. When I was a senior on campus, my now husband and I got engaged in May and planned a beautiful wedding for the next June. And that September, I found out I was pregnant with my oldest son. and still had those same feelings of shock and disbelief and disappointment in myself, and the feelings that I had about my family and their expectations of me. But through grace, I was able to complete all my courses. I had my son in April and graduated in May. One of my favorite photos is me standing with my family behind me and my degree in one hand and my 1-month-old son in the other, who I'm proud to say is a graduate of Wharton School of Business and now working in upstate New York for a great company. And so things do work out if you persevere and push. There were many challenges along the way, but I was really able to, because of the support of my family and friends and teachers at Temple, to really push through.
So you both have a certain ability to push through, and we were talking about this as well. It's like the grit, the passion, the I'm not giving up. What did you do, Syreeta? Maybe you could share with us that. Did you create a mantra or something and say to yourself, I'm not giving up, I'm making this happen, I am not stopping until I get my degree?
I wish that's what it sounded like. No, I mean, I had plenty of times, especially on campus, when I wanted to give up, especially during our first year. We live in North Philly, and on Temple's campus. We're based in North Philly. And so living on campus, we had some mice here and there and some stuff here and there, and I wasn't quite used to that. And I ended up, because I couldn't work like I wanted to, I was struggling financially. So I ended up having to go on welfare. And for me, that was definitely impactful to my self-esteem and my ego. That's just not something that I had saw for my life. My mom had taken us from a 3-bedroom apartment to a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath home with a Mercedes-Benz. So when I left Delaware, that's what I left. And I came to this little small apartment. But for me, what kept me going was my child. It was my child, and then just my own dreams. I knew I wanted more than what I had in life. And for me, I could go out and get a job, but I had to be honest about where the economy was. We're in the 21st century, where things are going, and an education I knew was going to open doors. And so it was like, do I sacrifice now and live the life I want later? It was always that short-term versus long-term gain. And so for me, those times where I'm crying my eyes out, or this is going wrong and that's going wrong, and I'm wondering how I'm going to stay in school, or if to stay in school, I always just had to look at my daughter and really ask myself, what do you want to be able to tell her about this time in your life? Do you want to be able to tell her that you pushed through and you did it, or you quit? And I didn't want to quit.
I don't know. There's no other questions to ask.
Well, and it's
You're
amazing.
like an inspiration. She's amazing.
Right.
How great she's, and you too. You're an inspiration. You could have quit. You could have said, I'm going to give up.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, though. I think, when you think about the statistic that 40% of students who find themselves pregnant don't even finish high school, and yet you were able to finish high school and finish college and start up this great business that you have. And I think it's important that people understand that the perspective that young people have when facing these kinds of challenges is really going to be critical to their success. So really not talking about what it is that they're going to be facing, the obstacles, the pressures, but really helping them to think about and think through how can they overcome them. And that's where these kind of resources, again, like your parents or a trusted friend, or even a community resource such as, again, a health clinic or Planned Parenthood. There are so many resources in the community to help support young people walk through this challenge.
You got pregnant again, correct, while you were on Temple's campus as well. So you have 2 beautiful daughters.
Yeah. Ariana, she's 9, and Gabrielle is 6.
So you are really setting up a great role model for them. You're going to teach them that.
Hopefully we'll skip the teen pregnancy part.
My mom had told me that I should have skipped the marriage part and just gone straight to the kids, so I don't know, you might have gotten it right. But you know what, we talked about it during the week, that teen pregnancy is actually on the decline, right?
Correct.
So it used to be, 1 in 10 people who were young adults getting from the ages of 15 to 19 were getting pregnant. It's on the decline. Do you think that's because we've become better at educating people?
I think so. I think part of it is increased education, not only in the schools, but communities. I think it's comfortability with parents, talking to their young people about sex and the consequences of sex and the choices that it will impact for them later in life. So I think all of those things together have helped to create more of a decline in teen pregnancy. But I would have to say is that we still, United States with its teen pregnancy rates is still the highest of any industrialized nation. So we still have lots of work to do. Lots of parents aren't comfortable talking to their young people about sex and its implications. Lots of communities, faith-based agencies are not comfortable talking about what the impact of having sex too young brings.
So we have a little bit of time left, but I guess I would like to ask you is what message would you like to leave today with anybody watching the show that is faced? I mean, we all go through hard times. And we all have to bounce back, and we all do it in different ways. And I guess my concern is people are going to quit and they're going to give up because, let's face it, going to college is difficult all by itself. You went to college, you had 2 children. What one piece of advice would you say, or what would you like us to remember?
I think the key to bouncing back is all about your perspective. It's about the perspective that you choose to have on your situation. If you make up in your mind that this situation is going to get the best of me, that this challenge is going to get the best of me, that's what it's going to do. You know, so if you choose to take a perspective where you say, this is how I want my story to be able to be told after this is the kind of person that I want to emerge as after this particular point in my life, then you put all of your effort and your energy into becoming that, into living that. And for me, that was what was key, you know, keeping the people around me that were moving me forward, making sure that I was taking care of my spirit and my mind, really taking care of myself from the from the inside out. That really just helped me with taking control of my life at a point in time where I felt like I had lost all control.
Well, thank you both so much. This is like, we could have done a second show on this, but thank you so much for sharing your story. I loved you the first time I met you, and I'm going to keep in touch with both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's a cliche to say that life doesn't always go as planned, but it's also a cliche to say that plans can change. Teen moms don't have to change their goals to bounce back into the lives they want. They can be good mothers. They can complete their education. They can have successful careers. It can be done. It has been done, and it happens more often than you think. Thank you for joining us today. Once again, I'm Lisa Bien, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Bouncing Back.